Welcome to Among the Workers, a Marxist media presentation brought to you by the Indiana CPUSA, where we have a people's conversation on current events and Marxist theory.
The rule of Viktor Orban in Hungary and the guy in Poland and fascism? Because it's my belief that Trump actually is modeling himself after those.
Well, I think it starts off with the immediate sort of thing that's coming up is obviously the election. And so what those folks have done, like Orban in Hungary and Bolsonaro, have aligns kind of very similarly with what Trump's doing. So he's creating chaos in this election using the pandemic to his favor. Attacking the mail-in ballots, attacking the post office to get those ballots counted and in time. And that's sort of like the immediate focus in the next 16 days, because I think that we're 16 days away from the election right now, is to create the chaos in the moment so that he can legitimately question the results of the election. And that's how he will keep power, or try to keep power, post-election and in the days and the weeks after those votes are counted. So he's already created this sort of platform to fight or argue against the outcome if it's not in his favor.
So what is the ask out of this video?
They're not arguing.
The ask out of the video is to preserve democracy. And because that is the essential short-term fight for democracy, even just to preserve what semblance of democracy we have, and to make the argument that we get a lot of pushback. A lot of people from the left will say, well, it doesn't matter, or that this is just a different form of capitalism continuing on beyond regardless of Trump or Biden are elected. But the point of the video, I think, is to provide like the background and historical context of how fascists have acted prior to actually instituting fascism, and sort of underline the point that to preserve what we have left of bourgeois democracy as it is the immediate fight for the working class.
Yeah. So what is the action that one has to do to preserve our bourgeois democracy today?
Get out and vote.
Okay,
and
so
like you really mean it. That's the
Biden.
Okay.
Right, for Biden.
Yes.
You see, I think we need to be really clear, because this could be really all over the place.
Right.
And we could get lost in the question of, is he fascist, is he not fascist?
I don't want to do that.
Right.
Yeah, right.
I'd like to say two things, or point out there are two things that Trump is really good at. Creating chaos is one of them, and the second one is separating us, creating an us and them. And to me, from my perspective, that's what we're fighting. That's really truly what, the party is supposed to be fighting anyway. So
that sounds like there's a diversion going on, which is the chaos.
agreed.
And this unity to weaken the forces that would be countering him, which is also a diversionary tactic. So they're really a unified. They're really connected. The chaos and the disunity, in my view, are very, very connected. I don't care about the fascism question, honestly. What I care about is that people get to the voting booth and vote for Biden, because I can list a lot of reasons why that are very practical and short term. And I think that fascism, it's an important thing for us when we're looking at our strategy and our tactics, to have that dialogue. But if we're talking to the outside world, what I would say to anybody who's listening to this is vote Biden. Do not get caught up in the distractions of the chaos, the misogyny, the racism, the anti-working class, the anti-immigration, the anti-science, the fake populism, the demagoguery, the unapologetic corruption. Do not get caught up with that. Get him out.
Yeah.
And then we have to build a movement to fix this shit because Biden's not going to be able to fix it.
I'm not sure people. I don't know how to explain it. I don't feel like people care right now if Donald Trump is called a fascist. And what I mean by that is like we're so wrapped up, or we as a whole population in the country have been so wrapped up in like, am I going to lose my job? Is my kid going to get sick? I mean, you know, there are so many things for us to worry about on a daily basis that I don't think the average person really cares if Trump is a fascist or not. They want their life back. They want some level of comfort back. And I don't feel like, personally, many have had it since before 2008. But to define that Trump hasn't done anything. He doesn't have a policy. He doesn't have. There is nothing he's offering to any of the populace. Anybody. I haven't seen anything offered. I'm holding up a list of all of Trump's achievements so far. You know, I mean, like, there isn't anything he has offered, but he has given to the wealthy, you know, wealthy corporations. I mean, what were there, like 3 tax breaks so far? Is that what it is? Anyone?
There's the one big one. I don't know.
I remember the one
Big one.
tax cut when Ryan was still in the Senate of the House, and they passed that shortly after he came to power. But what we're looking at, like, you know, what that is it's designed to buy off the elite and to get the elite and to consolidate his power. So it goes to the point of like, you know, we're not in fascism yet. So it's not really, you know, it's not really a question of, you know, is he fascist? Are we in fact? That's not the point. The point right now is we have to protect the ground upon which we have to organize, which may not exist, you know, going forward with another term. And that lack of space to be able to fight for working class interests could rapidly shrink. Whether we, you know, get into fascism in the next 4 years or not, it's just things, the ability to be able to organize and fight for healthcare and jobs and canceling rents and avoiding evictions of millions of people and people dying and starving and not getting the healthcare that they need is going to happen regardless if we're in a fascist dictatorship or not. And so, but to get to the point or to get workers to understand sort of like what their interests are is crucial right now because there's so much shit coming from various different directions to confuse them and create chaos and to make the vote outcome questionable and to have his, you know, sort of right-wing militias standing by to act violently or disruptively in any way, shape, or form, whether they win or lose, like street fights or whatever, is to, you know, add to that chaos, add to the confusion, and to make people afraid. And people are already afraid enough. And if he adds to that and comes out as this, like he's been campaigning on this law and order shit to, you know, put the banks and Wall Street at ease, because he, you know, they're looking for someone who's going to, like, you know, get the workers in line so they can continue to make profits, and that's so the point right now. The immediate struggle is this election to at least preserve what.
May I speak for a moment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Good comment.
Okay. So I think that you're touching on the things that are most important to me, and one of the things that I think about is that I'm going to be retiring soon. And some of us have just retired. And Social Security is very important to me. Trump and the people who support him are antagonistic to Social Security. They're antagonistic to Medicare. They're antagonistic to all the social programs that help workers. And it's not correct, in my view, to say he has not done anything. He has done a lot through various mechanisms, primarily executive orders, to undermine protections for our environment, for workplace safety, for the way that schools are operated, because we can't ever forget his appointment to the Secretary for Education. He has brought a level of corruption to the White House that is unparalleled.
Yeah.
And so if I'm talking about why I want somebody to go and vote, I want them to vote because I want Social Security to be protected. I want Medicare to be protected. I want our education system to be science-based. And I want a restoration of some level of respect and mutual dignity, acknowledgement of the mutual dignity of people inside this country, which has been totally eroded, I would say, since the Reagan years. So over the last 40 years, that has been eroded. So even though there's this constant talk about, from Biden and others, that they can work across the aisle, that only works if the people across the aisle want to work with you.
Yeah. Exactly.
So we've been in a anti-democratic, pure power play mode now since 2010, and that is detrimental to the bourgeois democratic forms that allow for us to struggle. And what we're trying to protect is our ability to build movements and to move forward beyond these bourgeois democratic forms to Medicare for all or a national healthcare service, to, basically at least to go as far to the left as Bernie Sanders, if not further. And that's, from my perspective, those concretes are what I will be pulling why I'll be pulling my button or mailing my my vote in for Biden and Democrats up and down the line. The other thing is that the attack on voting is relatively, the depth of the attack on voting is relatively unusual, because he's attacking his own legitimacy as president, the justice system as his own playground. And so the entire, we already have a challenge to the justice system in Black Lives Matter, which is exposing the injustice of our justice system. And what Trump is doing is actually heightening that injustice and heightening the fact that Americans cannot in any way rely on our justice system to win any kind of justice in conflicts. So
Eric brings a good point to this discussion in terms of looking at the justice system and how that's being weaponized to shut down even further any sort of organizing or mobilizations by criminalizing those mobilizations and being in the streets through disenfranchising people by convicting them of or charging them with felonies for protest. And so it's a clamping down on what exists as the First Amendment. And then when we see this reflected also in the court systems, where you have Amy Coney Barrett refusing to give any opinion in confirmation hearings, about the freedom of speech, or she couldn't even name all the rights protected under the First Amendment, or pretended that she couldn't, or conveniently forgot. It doesn't really matter, because what this is it's part of the strategy here for criminalizing any sort of opposition, with serious long-term repercussions for that, and disenfranchising those folks. And it attacks specifically the Black Lives Matter movement, because it is a well-organized, it is the largest sort of real grassroots democratic people's movement out there that presents any serious challenge to power. And so this kind of falls into line with that. When it's creating the chaos, it doesn't matter if folks are in the street demanding rights or protecting their rights, or creating movements and putting pressure on people. It's a way to silence that, and it's also a way to create this smoke and mirrors to divide folks, and paint them as like, and you've heard him sort of mention or try to describe Black Lives Matter as a terrorist organization, or a movement to classify Antifa as a terrorist organization. And this is straight out of sort of the playbook that exists, or whatever theoretical underpinnings that if you want to call them that, any sort of theory, or because there is no real logical theory behind fascism other than raw power. And this is a part of creating that and maintaining that raw power by disenfranchisement, the threats of using the state apparatus and the criminal justice system to really hurt working people.
We are communists. What we're fighting for is working class power. Trump is demonizing socialism, which is the struggle for working class power. Socialism is the movement to build a society that meets the needs of the vast majority of the people of this country. Trump is objectively undermining the mechanisms that are in this country to provide for the needs of the people, whether it's within the capitalist context. He's doing that. So we have massive unemployment. We have very, very, very low wages for those who are employed. We have COVID-19 rampaging through the rural areas, where we have gone through a de-hospitalization, where hospitals have been getting closed across the country under Trump. The COVID-19 pandemic, the group in the government that would have been the group to address that pandemic was disbanded by Trump. So the point from my perspective is not Trump. It's we need to get Trump out, because we need to start having a society that is going to address the problems of the great mass of workers and families and communities in this country. And that means, first and foremost, getting Trump out, building community organization, building community democracy, and continuing the fight, getting Biden in, not because we necessarily support Biden, but because having Biden in gives us a stronger basis for moving forward and for continuing to struggle for these long-term and short-term goals for the people of this country. So I understand the issue of the reasons why people want to or not want to vote for Biden. From my perspective, I am agitating to vote for Biden in this election early as possible, and using a paper ballot if you can, and then to continue to struggle after this election so that we can win changes that have to be won. So the vote against Trump is a vote for a larger demand, which is that our environment, our political environment, be responsive to the people, which is the fundamental democratic demand. So I just want to throw that out there.
The reason to vote for Biden is not because we believe he's the Messiah or anything. The reason to vote for Biden and elect Democrats is because it allows the left and allows people's movements more space to organize and more possibilities to influence his government as opposed to the Trump government. You know, there's been very little movement made of Trump's government by the people's movements, whereas the reaction, hopefully under a Biden administration, which he's already, based on his program, capitulated to a lot of things. The Democrats in general have capitulated to a lot of more progressive program points than they have ever done before. So that in the future, when Biden's elected, because I'm taking a positive approach. I predicted Trump winning last time. I'm predicting Biden winning this time. And I don't know if there'll be a bloodbath in the Republican Senate. Hopefully it will be. But I do think that a Biden administration will allow the kind of space for us to be able to influence, in particular, labor issues, which will help the working class in general.
What I've told people is, I said, you can define the problem as this. Before we do anything, before we can achieve anything, we have to get Trump out of there. All right? If you believe that, okay, then there's only one choice that's open to you, to vote for Biden. All right?
Thank you for watching Among the Workers, a media presentation brought to you by the Indiana CPUSA. If you like what you saw, please check out our other videos on YouTube, or you can find us at the Indiana District CPUSA on Facebook, or you can look us up at indianacpusa.org, or at the national level, please check out cpusa.org. Thank you.